Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Pokescast, production of the Casper Star-Tribune and Pokes Authority. I am Davis Potter, Wyoming beat writer for the Star-Tribune, and I am joined, as always, by my sidekick, our managing editor and former Wyoming beatnik, Brandon Foster. Brandon, what's happening?
Not much, Davis. I know we just did a brief rundown of what we're going to discuss today, but I kept one bullet point in secret from you. I feel like we need to discuss the fact that Wyoming football now has, football recruits named both DQ and Blizzard. That feels very newsworthy to me. DQ James had previously signed as a running back, and now they have a wide receiver, Jalen Blizzard. So feels like a lot of marketing opportunity here if players are soon allowed to make use of their likeness to profit.
Right. Let's not forget about Buck Coors either, who's already on the roster, freshman walk-on. So
and Gavin Beer. There's a lot of real good names.
It's fair. Yeah. Exactly. As far as their football recruiting, they're staying very on brand.
Just cold, frosty ones across the board.
Like if Wyoming has a Blizzard game, like I don't know, the next few years, what is it? It's going to be Blizzard catches it in a blizzard. Like, is that going to be the call, or how are they going to do that?
Oh, they're gonna assuming these are real contributors to the team. I feel like it's gonna get run into the ground. I can just picture the photoshops of first touchdown scored by DQ, and it's just like ice cold or something. I don't know. Honestly, though, if that becomes an opportunity with the NCAA landscape shifting, I feel like they could make so much money in Wyoming, or at least Casper, because I don't know if you're familiar with this, Davis, but Casper Dairy Queens tend to have lines that wrap around the entire building almost 24 hours a day. There's just always an insane line at both DQs in town. I don't know if you're I can't remember if Laradice has a DQ. I don't think it does.
No, it does. Yeah.
Oh, it does.
Laradice's
okay.
we've got a Dairy Queen here.
What
it's
am I
just
thinking?
Apparently the demand's not nearly as high as it is in Casper. That makes me think about Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
The craze about Chick-fil-A that I will never understand. But what do you think the reason for that is?
We talk about it a lot. My theory is it's just an ice cream thing, because it's DQ and it's Wendy's that both have really long lines in Casper, and my thing has always been okay, what do they have compared to other fast food joints? And it's good ice cream. However, I heard an interesting theory the other day that it's because Douglas, Wyoming, does not have either of those two chains, and so people will actually drive up to Casper to eat there. Also, I've heard people say it's the salads at Wendy's. I don't know. It's mind-blowing, but the lines are ridiculous. They will go out onto 2nd Street, which is one of the major streets in Casper, from the Wendy's. It's or the Dairy Queen. So anyway, I'm just not saying, but I'm just saying DQ and Blizzard, get ready.
Yeah. Well, we always appreciate our regular listeners to the Pokescast here, but that's why anybody that doesn't listen to this regularly should become a regular listener, because where else are you going to get the fast food rundown around Wyoming? I mean, that's the content you never knew you needed.
Well,
only you can get on
in
here.
theory, I keep telling people that we need to do a Sunday front page story on it, but nobody's biting.
Well, back to the point, Brandon. I guess it's safe to say there are plenty of options for Dave Walsh and Kevin McKinney. If any of these guys become significant contributors and score touchdowns or make impact plays in games in future seasons. Personally, I think if Gavin Barrett throws a touchdown pass or runs for a touchdown or something, the band should just start breaking out with the beer song at the game.
Oh yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on it. But yeah, if you have not heard, we are referring to Jalen Blizzard. Yes, that's his real name, a receiver out of Calabasas, California, who became Wyoming's third known commitment for the 2022 recruiting class. I think he committed on Monday. He didn't even announce it himself, at least not that I've seen. It was actually, I saw his the Twitter account of his high school team actually announced his commitment to Wyoming. But third commitment for Wyoming there. But speaking of football, Brandon, that is mainly what we're going to be talking about here. Wyoming concluded its spring over the weekend with the spring game, and a lot to talk about there, particularly with the re-engineered offense that Craig Bull and the coaching staff have been talking about ad nauseum this offseason. Wyoming basketball also used its final available scholarship to bring in a junior college All-American point guard. So they are now at the 13 scholarship limit for the 2021-22 season. But Brandon, before we dive into that, I just had to mention this. I know it's extremely sad news, but Colt Brennan, the former Hawaii quarterback, record-setting quarterback for Hawaii, died earlier this week at the age of 37, reportedly from a drug overdose, which, I mean, the whole thing's just sad, man. But I remember, back in my gaming days, which was basically like high school, college, when I played like NCAA football, like 07 or 08, whatever year it was, when Colt Brennan was at Hawaii, I always used to start a dynasty with them just to see if I could throw for like 10,000 yards every year. So I mean, I sort of grew up like Colt, Colt Brennan and when he was there, and June Jones and them when they were at Hawaii. Like that, they were the reason that you stayed up till 1 o'clock. You're on Eastern time or Central time. Staying up till like 1 midnight to watch those late games out on the island. Just really sad news all the way around from that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of magical parts of college football is sometimes you're especially maybe when you're a younger teenager or however old you are at that point, and you're like, man, I didn't even know this place had a football team, and now I am extremely invested in watching this team called the Rainbow Warriors do crazy things on offense 3 time zones away from me. That's just a lot of the fun of a college football. I think sometimes when Wyoming's on the big stage, they can be that quirky, fun team to watch for people in other parts of the country. But definitely very, very sad news to see that.
And I think people forget just how good Colt Brennan was as a college quarterback. Like, I know Hawaii's going to put up a bunch of stats, throwing the ball in that run and shoot offense, as much as they throw it. But I can't remember who tweeted this, but I saw this on my timeline sometime on Tuesday. Somebody tweeted out his stats from his career, season by season. I think it was his junior year. He attempted almost 600 passes at nearly 10 yards an attempt and still completed more than 72% of his balls. Like, that's really, really, really hard to do. So, I mean, it's not just the fact that they threw it a bunch, it's the fact that he was actually good. He was an accurate college quarterback and had a good supporting cast. And, I mean, there's a reason they made it to the Sugar Bowl that one year. I mean, they got beat pretty bad by Georgia, but, he was a really, really, really good college quarterback.
Yeah, I think I pulled it up. He had over 14,000 passing yards in his career. He had that's only 3 seasons.
That's insane.
131 touchdowns, 42 picks, with a passer rating of 167.6, according to SportsReference.com. So, yeah, in a career passing completion percentage of 70.4. It's wild.
It boggles the mind. But anyway, prayers obviously to his family and friends and his loved ones. But Brandon, before we jump into Wyoming football, I wanted to hit on the addition that the basketball team has made, and that is junior college point guard Deng Dut, who was a All-American in his one season at the College of Southern Idaho. He was a freshman. So he'll have multiple years of eligibility remaining at Wyoming. But scored 14.7 points a game, averaged more than 5 assists and 5 rebounds per game, shot 51% from the floor and 48% from three-point range, which I believe was like sixth highest clip in the country in terms of JUCO basketball. NJCAA first-team All-American. And a heck of a last-minute get for Jeff Linder because Deng had actually signed with Portland he wasn't even available as of like late April. And then Portland's coach Ben Johnson leaves to take an assistant job on Tim Miles' staff at San Jose State. And I think the overriding thought there was that he was just going to follow Ben Johnson to San Jose State. But Wyoming ultimately becomes the beneficiary in that situation. And I think he's a plug-and-play guy for them. And a big kid, too, about 6'4", 6'5". But, look, he'll have to come in and earn it just like everybody else. But you're not recruiting junior college kids, particularly at a position of need like Wyoming has at the point, with plans to sit him on the bench. I think if he comes in and does what he's supposed to do, I think I'll be shocked if he's not their starting point guard come next season's opener. And I think you've got a pretty versatile roster now if you're Wyoming. Now, look, we'll see what happens the rest of the way because as of now, again, they're at their scholarship limit for next season, but with this one-time transfer rule into effect, at any point somebody else could transfer out of the program. Now, you would think with that rule already being officially in effect that if these kids were going to transfer, they would have done it by now, but, who knows? I mean, this stuff is so fluid and things seemingly change by the day, but you're looking at potential lineups next season. I think you got Deng Dut will be your point. I think Xavier Dussel, I think Hunter Maldonado, and Graham Ike. I think those four are about as good as entrenched in terms of who's going to be their everyday lineup. But there's some options here now. If you want to go big, you could play Hunter Thompson and Graham Ike together. Again, I mentioned Deng Dut's size at 6'4", 6'5". You wonder maybe if he could slide over to the 2. You move Hunter Maldonado to the 3, and maybe you play the freshman Noah Reynolds at the point from time to time. It's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. And then, if you want to go small, maybe you put Hunter Thompson back at the 5 and play the 5 out, sort of like you did before Graham Ike became available last season. And don't forget, too, you got the Utah transfer, Brendan Wenzel, who can play on the wing. You got Kenny Foster. So it's going to be interesting to see how they end up using some of these guys and what this rotation and lineups end up looking like, because there's a lot of versatility now with some of the players that they brought in.
Yeah, and second, if I'm not mistaken, second guard in recent years they brought over from CSI, the College of Southern Idaho. I think Jake Hendricks was also a transfer from there. So
look at you, yeah.
CSI Laramie. There's another, free poster idea for anyone who's extremely bored. I think it also kind of answers a question that we had speculated on a few episodes back of, they obviously lost, a key contributor because of the transfer eligibility rule, and we wondered if they would, on the flip side, bring anyone in because of that, and appears, right. That was not the direction they went in, bringing in a high school player and a JUCO transfer to fill those last 2 spots. So doesn't mean they won't, going forward, but that's kind of how that played out.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. And look, they were reportedly after a lot of grad transfers too, because Marcus Williams leaving left a huge hole at the point. I mean, you wonder if maybe Xavier Dussel could slide over there from time to time, but I mean, I think he's a budding star off the ball as a prototypical 2 guard. I mean, I think he's in line to be one of the better shooters in the Mountain West next season. I mean, he was percentage-wise, he was far and away their best 3-point shooter last season, and really started getting in a groove late in the year. So I think you pretty much want to keep him there, which is why I think they brought in 2 point guards. And the first one was Noah Reynolds, the freshman from Peoria, Illinois. But you figured, with bringing in a true freshman that doesn't have any experience at the collegiate level, I think that's why you saw them go out and scurry the junior college and grad transfer markets, because I think if you can go out there and get somebody that's experienced and has done it at some level of college ball, and obviously Deng Dut has done that, having played 1 season in junior college, I think you would much prefer that. And I think he's going to be more than serviceable. I mean, you go to junior college ranks, and sign a player from there, you're expecting him to be an impact player. And I think that's what they're getting here in DeWitt. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play guy. Again, he's going to have to come in and earn it and show his mettle. I don't think the job's just going to be given to him, but I mean, I think this was sort of their plan all along was, hey, we've got a real need at point, and let's see if we can go out there and get a guy with experience to fill that role, at least for the majority of the time.
Yeah, and it'll be, interesting to see if he can lock down that point guard role going forward, and maybe they can have a little bit of consistency there. I'm trying to remember back to, obviously, the last year. Marcus was a breakout star at that position, but he's no longer on the team. And going back before that, I'm trying to remember who was running the point for them. Maybe you can loop me in on in the 2 previous seasons. But it's been a position in the last 5-6 years where there just hasn't been that consistency. That back when I was on the beat for a while, it was Jeremy Lieberman, who kind of more or less seemed to lose out on some minutes to Cody Kelly, and then there was Nye Redding was supposed to figure in there but never really locked down that position. So I mean, if you got a guy consistently running the floor for a couple of years, I think that can benefit a program long term as well.
Well, I think that was the issue in Allen Edwards' last season at the helm, because you remember Justin James was the point.
Right.
Yeah, in that 18-19 season, and then 19-20 they really didn't have. I think you mentioned Nye Redding. I think they were maybe dependent on him, and then he got in some legal trouble, obviously, and didn't play. But I mean, that was a huge void for this team going into Jeff Linder's first season, which is why you saw. I mean, yes, he was talented, obviously, but that's why you saw part of the reason why Marcus Williams took over as their regular point guard from day one, because I don't think they had anybody else in the roster that really constitutes as a primary ball handler and distributor. Now, Hunter Maldonado played that position some too. They sort of just did by committee Allen's last season because they didn't really have a true point. And obviously they had one last year, Marcus. You bring in a kid like Deng Dut from the junior college ranks, who's sort of proven himself, at least at the junior college level. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world to have sort of the captain of your ship, so to speak, and the leader of the offense that can get you in rhythm, distribute the ball, call out plays, and sort of set the tempo of your offense. And Jeff Linder's teams like to go fast, and it will be interesting to see what happens, because you look at, they do, I think, like to play quote unquote smaller. But I think that's more just from a tempo thing. They like to get up and down. But if they were to, slide Deng DeWitt over to the 2 at some point, you have a 6'5" 2 guard. You got Kenny Foster, Hunter Maldonado, Brendan Wenzel. All of them are 6'5" or taller. If you play Hunter Thompson at the 4, he's 6'10". You play Graham Ike at the 5, he's 6'9", 6'10". So I think they got a lot more size than they had last season. And but I just don't know how often you want to move Deng DeWitt off the point if you don't really have any other options. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely, it'll be interesting. And again, a pretty good, at least on paper, late addition for this Wyoming men's basketball team going into next season. But, Brandon, let's go ahead and take a break there, and then we come back. We will recap what we saw at the spring football game.
Sounds good.
Welcome back into the Postcast, and now we're going to take inventory of what transpired at Wyoming's spring football game over the weekend. Obviously, the The main storyline there being the first public display of Wyoming's offense under first-year coordinator Tim Polasek. And Brandon, I would ask you if you watched the game, but I know you didn't because outside of, or I should say, unless you were actually at the game, you weren't able to watch it because Wyoming did not stream the game, which, to be honest, I thought was sort of weird because, like, you've been hyping up this offense and you've been encouraging fans to come out and watch the game, and so even if they couldn't be there, why wouldn't you give them the option of watching it from wherever they are? But after seeing what they did offensively and how much they decided to show, I now understand why they did not stream the game. Because Brandon, they ended up showing a lot more than I thought they would. I mean, I've covered, I think now 7 spring games as a college beat writer, and I've never seen an offense in a spring game, be willing to show as much as they did. And so obviously, they didn't. I guess they didn't want to put that on tape for anybody. So unless you were there, you didn't get to see it. I
mean, I guess that's a trade-off I can live with if at least they actually showed you something, and if that means they weren't gonna make it available on video, then I guess that beats the alternative of them streaming a very boring spring game. So I debated briefly getting down to Laramie for it, but did not get a chance to watch, but was very very happy to see that they gave you a show. Yeah, well, I would have took my hat to your level of commitment to the research for this podcast had you done that. But yeah, so formationally, I mean, they didn't show everything, but I mean, they showed the typical 12, 21 personnel, empty sets. I mean, the first play from scrimmage was a pass out of an empty set. So, I mean, you had that. You had throws on first down, second down, the earlier downs. It wasn't just the run, pass, punt on display. I mean, even a few trick plays. And even the throwback pass to an offensive lineman who was eligible. Now, Alonzo Velasquez didn't go anywhere. He was, I think he was tackled for like a 10, 15-yard loss, which Craig Bowl sort of joked about after the game and said he was gonna fire Tim Polasek because he didn't know why he would call a play that would lose 10 yards. But I mean, just a lot more variation. I think a lot more dimensions to what they're doing offensively. I mean, there were jet sweeps, perimeter runs, so not everything was through the A gap and between the tackles. I know Tim Polasek's talked about that some, but you still didn't know just because of how tight-lipped they were throughout the spring. Of hey, we're not going to talk about anything we're doing. You wondered exactly how much they were going to show, and just in terms of the diversity. And I think that this was everything that fans could have expected and more. And look, it's a spring game, so you don't want to put too much into it. Knowing the usual circumstances surrounding a spring game. And Sean Chambers even said it afterward. It's one thing to sit there and pile up a bunch of stats and touchdowns and look good in a spring game. It's another thing to be able to go out there in the fall against real opponents and real defenses, mostly who are going to have their first and second stringers in the game, and produce the same way. And that's what everybody's really going to be waiting on, is to see how this translates over into the fall. But if you're a Wyoming fan and you were at that game and saw what took place, I don't think there's any way that you left there thinking anything other than, okay, all right, I'm encouraged. I'm hopeful that this offense will be more balanced, more diversified, and more unpredictable than what it has been in recent years. Yeah. I guess, can you describe a little bit in more detail what exactly a pass to an offensive tackle looks like? So did he was made eligible and just, went out in the flat as soon as they snapped it and they threw it back to him? Or how did he lose 10 yards? Well, yeah, so he was made eligible in the play. Now, I don't remember exactly. It was they sent the action to one side of the field. I don't remember if it was like a jet sweep look or a hand. I don't remember like how the play actually evolved. But yeah, like the Alonzo Velasquez, he drifted behind the, because at that point it has to be technically a lateral, so a backward pass. So he has to be further back in the backfield than whoever's throwing the ball.
And again, I can't remember if it was a running back or receiver or what the origination of the play was. But, yeah, it had to be a lateral. So they technically had to throw it backward to him, which is why he had to be deeper than the person throwing the ball. And I don't even remember who made the play, but they were basically sitting there waiting on it. So which was interesting because I actually asked Chuck Hicks, the linebacker, after the game if they had seen that at all during practice, and he said no. I mean, he said he knew it was a possibility that they might be able to dial up something, but they had not seen that particular play all spring. So I think you see that. That's just, I think it's just an indication of how. I mean, yes, the offense is going to be different. I don't want to sit here and just say how an indication of how different it's going to be because they're still going to have a lot of elements of what they've been doing. But I think just more of the unpredictability of it. I think that's a good indication of what you might be able to see this fall.
Yeah, I feel like that is such a bad idea to throw behind the scrimmage to an offensive tackle that tells me two things, or it tells me one, they are very cognizant of the fact that people wanted to see some non-boring stuff because that is definitely a play you can probably afford to burn in the spring game. That's not I could be wrong. I didn't see it, but it doesn't sound like a winning formula, so I don't think that's a trick play that you say, oh, we got to save that for, the 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter.
Right.
So
the thing was too, they called that at like midfield, and that's normally a play you're going to call at the goal line, right? So right. I mean, it's all about situation too.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong and I'll look stupid and they'll run it in the game, but to me that says that they very much were aware that fans wanted to see something fun. And I'll take it a step further. What if they actually, showed everyone so much fun stuff on offense and so many new styles of offense to re-trick people, and then they're just going to show up in September with the same old boring offense. Maybe it's just a red herring.
Man,
you gotta be a step ahead.
I think there would be riots in the streets of Laramie. That would be something. That would definitely be a story, considering how much they've talked about it. But anyway, so obviously the quarterback battle still ongoing, technically, according to Craig Bowl and everybody within that program. But I thought the quarterbacks looked good. I mean, they completed right at 60% of their passes combined. I'm talking about Sean Chambers and Levi Williams specifically. Went 18 for 30. And the quarterbacks, they had 4 passing touchdowns on the day. Now Jaden Clemens, the walk-on transfer from Utah, he threw one of them in the second half. But, Brandon, I don't remember. I don't know if Wyoming has had 4 passing touchdowns in a game since I've been in the 2 years that I've been on this beat. I mean, I know they had 3, I believe, in the Arizona Bowl. Back in 2019, but I don't think I've seen Wyoming throw 4 passes in a game.
Yeah, I wonder if the Potato Bowl is maybe the last time they did it. I can't even remember if that was a 4-touchdown game, but yeah, that'd be my best guess is that they haven't done it for you yet. So
yeah.
How was? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to ask?
I was just kind of curious how the environment was actually having, a game in front of fans again for the first time in a year and a half.
Well, my biggest takeaway was the student section who broke out just about every chant in the book. They did the, I believe that we will win, which, very clever for a spring game against your own team.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. They talked about CSU, in unflattering ways. But, I mean, overall, I thought it was – I think it was about as good as you can expect for a spring game. I mean, I think they had about half capacity. I didn't see anybody in the upper deck, so it was mainly just people scattered around the lower deck. But I remember driving around before the game, on my way into the stadium, and I mean the tailgating. I mean, it looked like a regular game. I mean, the stadium lot was packed with people. So it was good to see an environment that looks like something much more close to resembling normalcy at a college football game.
Okay, well that's good to hear. And I used that stall tactic to look up the last time they had 4 touchdowns.
Okay.
I think it was.
I knew you were up to something.
Well, no, I was also curious. It would have been nice to sit in the stadium again. It was part of the draw to potentially coming down there. But I believe it was the win against New Mexico on homecoming in 2017, actually, that they had 4 touchdown passes the last time. They had 3 in that bowl win against Central Michigan. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Did they have 3 in the Arizona Bowl? Do you have that up?
Let's see.
I thought they did. Maybe I'm wrong.
They had 3 in that was against Georgia State, or do I have it wrong? Yeah, there was 3 in that game. Correct.
Yeah, right. I thought so.
Yeah, in 2018 they peaked at 2 in a game, and they had 3 also in 2019 against Nevada.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought they had 3 in the Arizona Bowl, but yeah, look, Sean and Levi looked good. I thought for the most part. I know I guess I was more impressed. Maybe if you had to make me pick one, I was probably a little bit more impressed with Levi, what he did. Now, look, I think the format of the game sort of played more to Levi's strengths, just because the quarterbacks weren't live, so they didn't have any design runs for the quarterbacks, which is obviously a big part of Sean's game and something they're going to use. But I thought, particularly from a velocity standpoint, Levi Williams' arm looked stronger than I've ever seen it look. Now, maybe that's some recency bias on my part, because he was injured last year and just didn't have a whole lot of strength in his shoulder toward the end of last season. So maybe it's just been a while since I've seen him at full strength. But he even talked about after the game that his shoulder feels even stronger than it did before the injury last season. And the zip on his passes was noticeable. There was one throw I remember that I actually tweeted about, where if I remember correctly, I think it was a 5-step drop from under center, and he planted his foot and threw to the wide side of the field from the far hash on a rope. And I remember, when I was like, whoa, because I don't know if I've ever seen in my time on the beat a quarterback throw a ball like that. With that sort of velocity and that distance, that sort of took me back some, and so I thought that was really impressive. Sean did some good things too. He had the touchdown pass to X out of the backfield. They're going to put out a depth chart. Craig Bull said they're probably going to release it at some point this week. But he even said, that it's not going to be etched in stone. And, so this thing, it sort of sounds like whoever they name as the starter is just basically going to be the starter leading into the fall. Because it sounds like this thing could still play out come fall camp. But, in terms of, the last spring audition for the starting job, I didn't think any of those quarterbacks hurt themselves. Now, they weren't perfect. Both of them had an interception there in the second half. But I think that spoke more to their confidence at that point and their mindset, because in the second half, they rotated in and out with the third and fourth string guys. So most of their action came in the first half. Of those 30 passes that they combined to throw, 21 of those came in the first 2 quarters. And so, they built up confidence in that first half. And, Sean admitted after the game that, his throw was into double coverage and into traffic, and, it was a pass he probably shouldn't have thrown. But you sit there and think to yourself, after watching this passing game the last couple of years, well, if they didn't, if they weren't confident in what they were doing, if they had gone out there and they had completed only 3 of their first 10 passes, that's probably a throw they don't even attempt to make, because they don't think that they can do it. So for them to go out there and even just try to, make some throws maybe that they shouldn't, it's the spring. You're probably more willing to take a risk in a spring game, obviously, like that, where it's not going to hurt you. But I thought a really solid overall day for these quarterbacks, knowing the way that this passing game has performed in the last few years. Again, I think it's hopeful if you're a Wyoming fan watching what happened through the air on Saturday.
Yeah. So you're saying athlete injured his shoulder and came back with a stronger arm. To me, this sounds like a little bit of a Henry Rowan Gardner situation. If you're familiar with 1993 Classic Rookie of the Year. So
yeah.
Well, I didn't of losing a quarterback to the Chicago Cubs. Sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say that. You said that, but yeah. I mean, I didn't see him throw. I mean, none of his throws knocked anybody down that I saw. Like trying to, they didn't work that powerful, but. Yeah, I thought there was a noticeable difference in just the zip that he had on his passes. So defensively, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot to take away. I mean, some of their better players didn't play at all, and if they did play, they played very few snaps. I mean, Chad Muma didn't play at all. He was basically a coach on the sideline. Garrett Carl played here and there. So, I mean, the second half was really to start, emptying the bench and just letting everybody get a chance to play. So, I mean, the offense was the story. That's what everybody was watching closely going into that game. And again, I mean, it's spring, so don't take too much from it, but it's at least encouraging what they did on that side of the ball. So,
yeah. And it's, again, don't want to read too much into a game I did not watch, and that even if I had, it's an exhibition against your own team. But, maybe this adds a little clarity to the storyline we discussed last week, I believe, about, why is the QB competition so close, and is that something we should be worried about? Well, if Levi Williams is out there looking like a new quarterback, maybe the answer to that is, yes, it actually is that close, and no, we don't need to be worried. It's actually a positive thing. So let's hope that that's the case.
Yeah, and I think there's also, too, an expectation with Sean knowing that, again, these are his first live reps in more than a year, I think. So, I mean, he wasn't going to come back and set the world on fire. I mean, it was going to take him some time, but I thought he looked fine outside of a few throws. But, I mean, you could say that for both of those guys. So, again, I think the theme is just encouraging and hopeful if you're a Wyoming fan that this offense is going to be the kind of different look that Craig Bohl and his coaching staff have been talking about all offseason. I think another performance worth noting is Titus Swin. Talk about another guy who has been out of action for a while. Their sophomore running back who opted out last season after sort of breaking out a bit as a freshman back in 2019 when he was their third leading rusher. I think he had 155 all-purpose yards on 7 touches. He had one catch and 6 carries. One of those carries, he broke a couple tackles, I should say, for a 55-yard touchdown. And then his lone reception was a screen pass where the defense snuffed it out. I can't remember who was there at the line of scrimmage, but made a guy miss at the line of scrimmage and then booked it 71 yards. So he didn't show a whole lot of rust at all. And so now you get him back. If he's able to perform like that and sort of complement what Xavier Valladay and Trey Smith can do, it just makes this offense all the more dangerous, which is, I can't believe I'm sort of saying that right now. Just considering what it's looked like in previous years. But, he had a really good day. Yeah,
I mean, if they're able to even build on their running game success and the positive indications from the pass game actually hold up, that changes the outlook of your season a whole lot. And yeah, that depth is very exciting. Just how many guys they have back there who you can trust to run the ball and carry the load. And I think you tweeted, was it Trey Smith alluded a little bit to us potentially seeing a couple guys on the field. Not that they want to give anything away, but why not? You got that much depth. Make offenses, think twice. And I think, in theory, in an ideal world, these passing plays and everything aren't coming at the cost of rushes. The hope is you're going to have more plays on offense because you're going to not be punting as, frequently early in drives. Suddenly you have long extended drives. You wear down defenses. You can still get that run game its share of the load, and I don't know, paired with the defense they've got, that suddenly there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. Again, don't want to read into a spring game too much, but that seems like the recipe for success.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Trey Smith because I do have a story out on Trey at Trev.com and PoachAuthority.com just about his his continued pursuit of his dream to play in the NFL and follow his dad's footsteps, despite being his 7th year in college now and being I guess by the time next year's draft rolls around, he'll be 26 years old. So you guys can check that out if you are interested in that. But yeah, it was interesting talking to him because he talked a lot about blocking and how his role could be, blocking for X or blocking for whoever he needs to block for, and mentioned that a lot. And I'm sitting there thinking, that sounds a lot like a fullback. And so I asked him if, does that mean that him and X might be on the field at the same time in some formations? And yeah, he was like, not going to give anything away, but it's definitely a possibility. And I think he said, there's going to be a lot of surprises in this offense. So take that for what you will. But I'm trying to think, any other massive takeaways. Zaire Jackson, they're true freshman and the only early enrollee from their 2021 signing class. He made a couple of impact plays. There was a botched punt, and he was on the rush team, and he actually got to the punter and stripped the ball out of his hands and walked into the end zone for that, and then had an interception of Levi in the fourth quarter. So wonder if maybe he might be able to provide them some depth behind CJ and Azizi there at corner. But yeah, they pretty much belong to the offense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to Trey Smith, you mentioned, he is hearing it a little bit about being the old man on the squad, and he wants to follow in his father's footsteps. Apparently the Jaguars are very much into signing old people, so maybe he can literally follow in his dad's footsteps. Have they signed some older players recently? This is a Tim Tebow allusion. Yeah. I assume Tim Tebow's very old. I guess I don't know. At this point, but
I was being facetious. I know who you're talking about.
33.
Yeah, it's interesting in itself. All right, Brandon, I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. Any parting shots before we get out of here?
No, I think that covers it. Another spring camp in the books.
All right, well, be sure to check out all of our coverage at trib.com and pokesauthority.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Pokes Authority. You can follow me on Twitter at Davis E. Potter. You can follow Brandon on Twitter at bfoster91. This podcast is on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Omni, so be sure to subscribe, download it, give us that 5-star rating. This podcast will also be found on our website at the Pokescast link, which is updated each time a new episode is published. Brandon, appreciate you joining me. Appreciate all of you guys, as always, for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.